Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, I produced a paper in February 2011, and that's the title. If you haven't got this paper, I would be willing to give you that paper for you to read. And accompanying that paper is also a key challenges. That's a video link facing the Khoja Shia international Muslim community. I just want to make a couple of points here. When I started the Awakening Project, I asked myself, well, how come that we have survived for such a long time? As a community, how many years have we survived? We have an institutional or community history of 160 years. We have a history in Islam of 700 years. So the question that I asked myself, well, what is that strength? What is the strength that we have that we survived for 160 years without a state, without an army, without assets such as oil, and yet we are surviving as a community? 160 years. And you know, when I did my research, I looked at the strengths and all that, and I came to three factors which have allowed us to survive. What I call three institutions. One of them is institution of Madrasah, institution of member, and institution of family. These are the three Now this is not the subject of mine today, it's a different subject. But I just want to give you a flavor of what this project is all about, and when I get a chance again, I can talk about this particular three institutions and whether, in the light of the challenges that we face today, whether these institutions are able to withstand the challenges, and what we need to do in these institutions to make sure that we can survive for another 160 years in this globalized world. Okay, so that's one thing that I wanted to put across. The other thing I want to put across is that whatever I'm going to speak now is my thinking, and I appreciate you and yourselves allowing me this opportunity to speak to you and share my thinking. Some of the things that I've heard from Bai, it's fantastic, and I want to say this to you, that whatever I'm going to say is to add on to whatever exists in our community, whether it is in the madrasa, whether it is in the family, whether it is in the member. Because we have progressed well, what we need to do is every time we need to microscope whatever we are about, and in the light of what we face, we must adjust and we must change. So my topic, next slide please. This is my topic today, creating frameworks from the legacy of Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam. But this is very important in the light of our own experience and our own expertise and our own community experience. The Q project that Omi has done is exactly that, in the light of the expertise that we had within the community and in the light of the community experiences that you all went through. Now this is treasure that we have in our community. What we don't do is express them, is to bring them out and share it with others. And so today's lecture, I want to focus on how we can create a framework from the legacy of Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam. These figures, Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam, are so compartmentalized. We have kept them at a distance. They are almost godlike, and we can't relate to them in our daily lives, and therefore our children cannot make them the role models because they are so separate. But if we make them the role models in the way that they can relate to in their daily lives, how did Imam Ali alayhi salam solve his problem in his own lifetime? And the same problems that he was getting, we are getting, and how we can relate it to that. If we can do that, it'll be fantastic. But what do we do instead? We hear that these are figures far beyond us. And there's a tragedy. then we substitute these role models for someone else. Beckham, very small, just example. Or someone else whose morality would be completely different. But then these figures are not for Khoja Shia Ishnashris or Ishnashris or Muslims. They are figures for humanity, and it is our job to introduce these figures as role models for humanity, and we haven't even begun to do that. Even our Ashura, even our Muharram program relate to our own needs, our own emotions. Yet Imam Hussein is an international figure, and we haven't even begun to introduce Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the way he should be introduced, as a just figure, providing inspiration to whoever is suffering oppression. So, next please. So why do I want to do that? Please. Now these are 5 or 6 important points of research. The first one is the spiritual secular educational movement. We don't realize, but that is how the secular setup has ended up. Because I suddenly realized that whatever the secular product is, it is a very linear product. It can only think in one way. And suddenly these guys thought that there is something else besides just the mind or just the reason. There is a spiritual aspect to it. And so the whole movement has become, it's known as spiritual secular education movement. This is all about, this is coming up. And what's happening is that these people are providing answers to our children. And they're separating God. They're separating religion out of us. Because they say, oh, your emotional needs, your spiritual needs are being met here. It's a very human philosophy, and you see, they are separating religion out of us, and we need to make sure that religion come back. And we mustn't be docile about it. Why should we? We've got a space now. We can talk about Islam, we can talk about Christianity, we can talk about Hinduism, we can talk about Judaism. We've got the opportunity. We must now make sure that religious takes its rightful place to provide the spiritual education to our child. And if we are not very careful, if we don't understand this movement, we'll soon find that our child will be suffering dichotomy. In the family, he will behave in our spiritual way. Outside the family, he'll behave in their spiritual way. Haven't you heard of this technique that Myers-Briggs test? How many of you have understood? Myers-Briggs, there's no religion in that. But it will inspire you because it's much more emotional and spiritual based. But there's no God. Look at the programs you see on TV. Fantastic program. Particle that was discovered. God-like particle, they say. But there is no God the way we understand it. They produce a beautiful natural program, and there is no mention of Allah or God. What does that tell you? That they want to part away God. And we are allowing them because we don't understand the movement. The second movement is Orientalism. Now, Orientalism at one time was that they understood the knowledge of our culture, and then they used that particular knowledge to dominate us. But now, they know, we know. But this is what was all about. So now, it's not East against West or West against Islam. Now, the challenge for all of us, including the religious-minded people, is to find out universal frameworks and principles with which the whole humanity can benefit. So now we have a chance. It's not somebody's domination, but now they will say, well, if you are an Islamic personality and if you are a Muslim person believing in Islam, then produce values which are universal. Now we have to think not in terms of we being Muslim, no. We have to think in terms of we are humanity first. And Islam is the foundation upon which we are going to build our life. And so the principles that we are going to bring out, which are universal principles, are coming from Islam. And who best than our Prophet and Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam? Because they have left a legacy we haven't even touched. And I'm going to go into that in a minute. I've talked about compartmentalisation of holy figures. You understood the picture that I'm giving? We need to make these figures more relevant than what we have done so far. But what we are doing is making them godlike. Oh, they can do it. They are imams, aren't they? No. They suffered as much as we did. But they came out. Why can't we? That's why they become role models for us. This particular business is very important, this reductionist and streamlining of education. You know, nowadays in universities and in the school, we have education which are much more summary form or modular form. Now, we don't have sometimes a choice, but that doesn't mean that we can't do anything about it. Why do we have to create a madrasah, which is a modular form? Why do we have to borrow that concept? We have our own experiences, we have our own expertise now of almost 160 years. Saturday workshop has got an experience of 25 years. And what you have come up with is fantastic. I think it needs to be built upon, definitely. And a lot of madrasas have to catch up on what you are doing. But what we need to do is to make sure at the same time that those classical books that we have, like Nahjul Balagha, like Risalatul Hukuk, has to be studied in its original form, so that the message that is given in a modular form or in a summary form in many ways is lost out. We do not understand the core philosophy behind those messages if you don't do the core text like Nahjul Balagha and Risalatul Hukuk. We don't touch them because we find them perhaps complicated, but they're not complicated. If you put your mind to it, I mean, there is a lot of expertise now within you who can look at page of Nahjul Balagha and come up with a very simple way of understanding it. Why can't we create that for our children? Others do. I know one Harvard professor did, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And education has become external. You know, we create a center of excellence to do syllabuses, to do teachers training. These are very good, by the way. I'm not against them. But they're external. What we need to do is to create an internal framework for our child. This will help to augment that internal framework. And last bit is what I'm going to talk about today. All right? Next slide. Yes, I just wanted to do this preamble before I go into the subject matter. We want to do this creating framework is because we have our values there. Because we want to derive universal principles out of that. And we know that if we go by universal principles, that our path is much more loftier. And if we do that, then there is a hope for the community. Even like Umi said, you know, I like that, Khoja Shia Ishnashri, you must be proud of that fact. The fact that you are a Khoja, you have a history, just like Iraqi, just like Irani, just like Lebanese, just like Syrians, just like any other Muslim community. They shed blood for the cause of Islam. We have a history which also tells us that we shed the blood for Islam as well. So don't be upset by the fact that, oh, you are a Khoja. Well, we are a Khoja and proud of it. A lot of communities, when I was Secretary General, a lot of communities used to come to us and want to learn about how as a community we have survived for 160 years. Sit down and we'll talk about it. But remember, universal principles do not change with the passing of time because they are timeless. That's why we will search for universal principles within the legacy of Islam, all right? But this is what I want you to try and imbibe today, at least. Our greatest strength as a Khoja Shia Ishnashri community lies not in how much we differ from each other, but in how much we are the same when we follow these universal principles. Isn't it inspiring? If we follow the universal principle, it doesn't really matter where you come from, whether you're an Afghani or Iraqi, or even within our own Khoja community where we are from, Kachawad or Kutch or whatever. We are the same. We will be united. Next, please. So I want to look at the subject of education today. Okay. those of us who studied in UK try and understand something where the government is going. In the 70s, 80s and 90s, we had Department of Education and Science. How many of us remember that? Department of Education and Science? We do? Fatma Bhai? I don't recognize. Yes, Fatma Bhai Virani, ne? Yeah, okay. We recognize that Department of Science, but this was in 70s, 80s. But in 2001, it changed to Innovation, University and Skills. This was all universities and school. Here, we're bringing something else, Innovation and Skills, right? But by 2007, it was renamed Business, Innovation and Skills. University is out of the picture. Today, the university is a means for another objective. You have education not for the sake of education, education for the sake of the establishment. The banking, the politics, the business, the commerce, which are all run by some agendas. And this education is for that agenda. Can you see that? It's not holistic, it's not education for itself. Madrasah can at least provide education for itself. And that is where we need to be, in the forefront of our child's education. At the moment, unfortunately, look at the dichotomy. When a child goes to the school, he receives the best there is in the school. When he goes to the madrasa, we are working about, well, how many children should we have in a class? What sort of facilities and infrastructures do we have? Do our leaders talk about how good infrastructure there is in the madrasa? How many of us leaders attend the madrasa setup and see what sort of rudiments of infrastructure that we have? I'm talking about rudiments of infrastructure. While they get the best outside in the secular institution, we should provide and even match it as a community. And don't think that we cannot. We are one of the richest community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given blessings to us. And ni'mah. Okay, next one. So now, this is interesting. Our education is now memory-led, you see. You go primary, secondary, university. If you've got a good memory, you can pass the exams, and you can get your BA, and you can get your MA, and you can get... I have got, by the way, BA, MA, and PhD. I have got BDS in dentistry. I have got masters in ethics and law, and I've got PhD in law. What good is that? Allah has blessed me with memory. I passed. But you see, a lot of people are now challenging that if you get 2-1, you're good. If you get 2-2, well, what good is a person with 2-2? Now that sort of idea is now being challenged by people who are innovative in their thinking. They're saying that mathematics has really screwed our life, upset our life. They bring this 2-1 and A grade and B grade and say, that means that you're depriving children of their potential. So now what's happening is that the business and commerce wants intelligence-led people. They want these skills. Problem-solving capacity in them, adjusting capacity, decision-making capacity. Let me just briefly talk to you about that. Problem-solving capacity. આજે તમે ગુજરાતી આવડે છે બધાને? ઓકે. You'll understand. આજે તમે બેઠા હો, તમારા ખોળા ઉપર સાપ આવે, તમે શું કરો? તમે જો આમ કરો, ઓ મારા ખોળા ઉપર કેમ સાપ આવ્યો? કેમ મને જ સાપ આવ્યો? કેમ અહીંયા જ સાપ આવ્યો? You're not solving a problem, ne? But if you, the moment the snake comes on your lap, you remove that, problem solved. Problem came, problem solved. See, so that's the skill business wants. That's the skill the community wants, the skill society wants. Adjusting capacity. आज આટલો વરસાદ કેમ પડ્યો? આટલો તડકો? વરસાદ બહુ પડ્યો તો અમ્બ્રેલા લઈને વટાઈ જા બારે, એડજસ્ટ થઈ જાય છે. આટલી ગરમી, ફૂલાનો બે કાઢી નાખ. આખું બધું નહીં કાઢતા, ખાલી ફૂલાનો બારે જાઓ. બટ બહુ ઠંડી તો બે સ્વેટર પહેરી લ્યો. You see, our children, our boys must have that adjusting capacity. Then decision making capacity. 10 જણાને પૂછવા જાશું આવે, આજે હું આ કરું છું, શું થશે? બરાબર છે? 10 બીજા જવાબો મળશે, એમાં આપણે કન્ફ્યુઝ થઈ જાય ને. હસબન્ડ ને વાઈફ 25 વર્ષથી મેરિડ હોય તો દર સવારના બાઈ તમારી પાસે આવતી હોય હસબન્ડ પાસે, આજે ક્યું શાક બનાવું? એ જગદંબા, આને બટેટાનું શાક ભાવતું હોય તો બનાવી દે. બહુ રાડો પાડે તો કાન બંધ કરી નાખજે. પહેલા 6 વર્ષ હંમેશા બાયડીને શાંત રહેવાનું, પછી 6 વર્ષ તમને આદત તો ખબર પડી ગઈ ને. You become dominant. See the skills. Decision making capacity is so important. Our children sometimes lack that. So now what's happening is that you have this memory led and then you have this intelligence led with a transformation. Now what I want to say to you is that do we need another framework behind that? How many of you think that we do? And how many of you think that that's about enough? Come on. How many of you?
It's definitely not enough.
Not enough. Not enough. Why do we think that? Yeah.
I mean, it's not enough. I think probably just mix the both up.
Yeah, I want you to think a little deeper than that.
The God
One
factor.
practical individual.
The God factor, yes. Okay. Yeah, sorry, what you going to say? What were you going to say?
I'm saying that, I mean, mix them both up and then get practical individuals instead of people who just stick to theory,
Right,
but don't apply it.
right. Okay, actually they went from theory into practice there, okay? Now, even in the practice, there is conduct involved, isn't it? If you're going to do problem solving, you still have to move in your action, am I right?
Yeah.
Right. When you adjust, you still have to move in your action, am I right? Okay. Decision making, you still have to move into your action, yeah? What sort of action should we have is the question. What type of action should we have? What is the, sorry?
There's no ethics in that.
That's right. Now what we're going to do, and this is where you will all come in. This is all Saturday workshop and Madrasah is all about. We can create frameworks behind that now. Okay? Let me see. Let me show you how. Next one. Can we, now the question to you is, can we extract or derive a universal principle from the work of Ahlulbayt for education, for example? Okay? Now this guy from Harvard University, he was I don't somehow remember his name. He was a Palestinian. Beautiful work that he has done. And he was completely, he saw so much defects in the present education system. So he was searching for a principle. Okay, what is a universal principle that we can use to build the whole edifice or the building of education? We build the whole education system, knowledge system. And he simply could not find a universal principle from the readings that he had done. And one day he went to Harvard University library. And guess which book he picked up? How come? See, you are forefront in your thinking then. Okay, Nahjul Balagha he picked up, and he picked up a beautiful sentence from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imagine a Palestinian Christian picking up Nahjul Balagha, principle from Nahjul Balagha. Where are we? We are supposed to be in the forefront of Ahlulbayt's work and legacy. So he picked up this principle. Qimatu kulli amrin ma yuhsinuhu. The value of each person lies in the good he does. Look at it. It doesn't involve 2.1, does it? It doesn't involve A, B, C, D, E. The value of each person lies in the good he does. What is that good? Yuhsan. What is it, yuhsan? So when you look at the dictionary meaning of yuhsin, this is the meaning of it. How well the person does. Look at the depth that Imam Ali alayhi salam gave in that universal principle. How well the person does. How beautiful, pleasing what one does to the senses. We have aesthetic dimension within the education. Social dimension, how good his or her action is for the community. how much one gives of oneself to others, altruistic dimension, how respectful he or she is of people and ideas, open to ideas. So when a person is produced of that nature, that society will definitely benefit. Definitely. We need to build an edifice around this principle. So it equates to the worth of a person. You see here, we're not equating it with 1.1 degree or 2.1 or 2.1 or 2.2, I don't even remember, or PhD or MA. But as Sibtain Panjwani, how does he contribute to the society's welfare? How much beneficial he is to the community at large. And every one of us have got potential to change society. Never think like that, oh, I am only a poor Khoja girl. No. You have got potential. I am only a Khoja boy. I am in a small community. No, your community has survived for 160 years. It has given you all sorts of facilities to live, to survive, and to die peacefully as well. And we have got potential to change, to bring revolution. Our community unfortunately lacks certain things. We are not a reading community. We are a business community. You produce books and you give it out, they will just put it in somewhere and it just lies there. We don't have a culture. We are even losing our language. Do you know Gujarati language is such a beautiful. Aaj tame joke samara. Did you not enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? You understood that? Yeah. It's a beautiful language. But we are losing it. Why? Because we think that it is inferior. In our psychology, we think Gujarati doesn't have any presence in our world. It's bad. If we don't have a culture, if we don't have a language, we will not be able to produce Nobel Prize winners, if you want to put it this way, Ahlulbayt Prize winners, if you can put it this way. We have to have Gujarati language. We have to have our culture. We should be proud of our dimension, of our history. But we're losing it. We don't even recite in Gujarati. I do recite sometimes in Stanmore, in Gujarati, or some of you have heard. But really it needs to be pushed. Now today, Gujarat state is the powerhouse of India. In the 8th century, globalization of commerce started. I'm talking about 8th century. Globalization of commerce started in the eastern part of India, western part of India, eastern part of Africa, the archipelago of Indonesia, and they created a commercial globalized world where every inch of the territory that I have mentioned had a Gujarati there. So Gujarati language is beautiful. Our great-grandfather had only one language, Gujarati, in which they communicated. And look at the legacy they left us. That we are today one of the richest community. And if we put all this down the grave, who is to blame? Not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, us. Because we haven't understood our potential that Allah gave us. Right, next slide. So what should be the content that should underpin that principle? How should we formulate the framework to achieve yosin? Now this is the process. We've talked about the principle. This is a process within the framework. This is from hadith again. Who do you think which hadith is coming from? Yes. Who is the most hadith giver in our Aimma? 6th Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Believe me, if you don't get anything out of 1st Imam, we go to 6th Imam. When we talk about identity, I am a Khoja Shia Ishnashri Muslim, right? I am a Muslim with other Muslim because I am a Muslim. I am a British Muslim because I live in the United Kingdom. I live in Essex, so I have a connection with Essex County. I live in Chelmsford, so I have a connection with Chelmsford Town. I live in Chelmer Village, I have a connection with Chelmer. That's the way to look at it. That's your identity. Today it's multiple identity. But never give up where you come from. As Umi really will explain extremely well. Okay. So roots of conduct. This is the process I'm talking about. Roots of conduct relates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your conduct should relate to Allah, it should relate to yourself, it should relate to your world, and it should relate to the people. Now, Today I don't want you to think in terms of fiqh and tariq and all that, please. In my lecture, where I'm talking about frameworks, right? So it's macro thinking now. Okay, now, so we started a process. Now build it up. For people, we've got about 7 of them. I only listed 5, but there are 7. Where, for example, when you deal with people, forbearance, forgiveness, humility, generosity, compassion, good advice, all that come into that in your conduct. So when you are putting your skills about, when you are problem solving, this is what you'll be thinking as well, right? So it's behind that. That's formulating your conduct. When it talks about wealth, you are content with what you have. So there are 7 of them like that. This is hadith from 6th Imam. When you talk about Allah, give His due. Keep His limit. Be thankful. Content with His decree. These are the things that we need to teach our children. Of course, which you are. Then self, all that. Now you see a flower, like it's closed flower. When we have a principle, then the flower petals open. And you can open up even more, even more, even more. But you have a knowledge system. You have a creative framework. It's from Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam. And this class here has got so much treasure. You have so much treasure of 25 years or 160 years. If we can just direct ourselves into that, we can create frameworks which we can share with humanity, based on universal principles, for example, like Yuhsan. That Palestinian professor then went on to form an educational forum in Middle East, based on that principle. And he was talking to the Shia audience. He said, "Where are you? It has to be United Nations guys to send that Malik Ashtar letter to all the kings. It had to be United Nations. Where are we? As a community, even as a small community, we have such treasures within ourselves. We can at least do this sort of thing now from our experiences." Okay, next. So what is the practical outcome of this creative framework? Ubudiyya. Bondage to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the purpose in any case. So you see, from that principle, we built a process, and then we want to end up with a child who is in servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a child born today in a Khoja community, we have to ask ourselves, when he is 21, what sort of a man do we want? And have we got the institution that would provide him with all the wherewithals to produce such a man? Do we have the right institution of member? Do we have the right institution of family? Do we have the right institution of madrasah? Do we have it to produce a man like that, who can withstand himself as a balanced person, following the path of Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam, but not defensive? If he wants to talk about Islam, he would stand up and talk about Islam. Next one. This is beautiful. If you don't take anything away, pedagogy. What does pedagogy mean? Do you know, in my time, I never had that understanding of pedagogy. Is it pedagogy? Pedagogy. Goji. There you are. You see, pedagogy. It shows how ancient I am. So now we have to live with pedagogy. Oh, pedagogy. Pedagogy, yeah. But look, if we set our existence in 3 states, we start with being. We are existing. Can we go into that state straight away?
No.
We can't. We have to progress there. And look at the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's given us time. Time is a big ni'mah. You know, you lose a diamond, you can get it back. You lose 1 second that Allah has given you, it can't recover. So even 1 second of your life, you progress into something like becoming. So a child, when he comes into existence, he has to become something. And our community's institution must be ready for him to become something. I'm not talking about only community's responsibility here. There is individual and family responsibility, which we go into. Today is not the time. But I'm giving you a flavor, because you are a madrasa teacher, and I have such a high respect for you. Do you know our community has to take their hat off to you girls, to you mothers, to you ladies. Had you not been for us today, our community would not have survived. It's the motherhood of this community which has made this community survive. And credit goes to all of you. But we can progress a child into something that he can transform a society, a community. At Gandhi, look at Gandhi. He was a Gujarati, wasn't he? Look what he did. Jinnah, he was a Gujarati. You should be proud of the fact that you are a Gujarati. You can transform the whole world. But it articulates the growth of human being, yeah? And what's the learning outcome? Is to follow his will. His will is the standard and measure of good. And our duties are measured by our conformity with his will. That's all we are about. At the end of the day, we have to face him as a flower. You know those petals that open up with the thing that I showed you, petals? Allah, the conduct, we become a flower. And we present ourselves as a beautiful fragranced flower. Khushbu aati hui. Okay. So, identify a principle like Yuhsan, and then we build the processes and we provide a beneficial outcome. Now this we can do. This madrasa's teachers can do. And it is being done. What I've heard today, we need to put values to it as we go along. She's done a wonderful work. I mean, I don't know the team. You've got a team, I take it. You are the team, as she says. So let us recite not Surah Fatiha because you're alive. Salawat. We always praise him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through our Prophet. Okay, build the process and then provide beneficial knowledge. So, the principle we identify. So important to identify principles from the hadith, from the Quran. The process we have to, again from the hadith. We just have to search for it. And we have to use our aql. And then the practical learning outcome. Okay? And it has to be, the reason why I say this is because I think that is a potential that we have. We must exploit this potential. What's the point in taking all your knowledge to grave? What's the point? You have built 25 years of your knowledge base in your brain that you're going to take it to the qabr. Let's determine ourselves that we should now, as the potentialities within all of us, produce creative frameworks from Ahlulbayt's work and share it with the world. Introduce these personalities as universal personalities. Today, if I talk about Yuhsan to a community of non-Muslim, believe me, they'll be impressed by my talk. Where did I get that from? Ahlulbayt. It's not my original thinking. It's his thinking. Our Imams have done so much for us, and they pray for us. There is a hadith from Shaykh Suduq, confirmed by Hilli, confirmed by Tusi, in which our Imam is praising, is reciting dua for us. That keep the believers from the shackled position, and particularly those who go and pray in front of the grave of my grandfather Imam Hussain alayhi salam. They are praying for us. Martabo, look at our but what do we do? So we need to do a lot more than what we are doing. I'm not doing a madrasa here, I'm also giving a parting shot to the community as well. As a community, we are in such a good position with all our institutions to do so much. Okay, that's the end. It's a short presentation, but I hope that you took something from here and that it inspires you to do even good work for the madrasa. Okay?